One Lifers, I hope you had a very, very, very Merry Christmas. And I really hope you'll have a truly happy new year and a very meaningful new year is what I would hope for everybody in 2018. And for this Sunday, we knew going into it, it's one of those weeks we know we have to throttle back for everybody. And we wanted to offer a time that was just special so you could relax a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just frame up some things because we want to have a special prayer time. So here in a few moments, I'm going to pitch it back to those who are leading on your campus, and they're going to walk you through a few things. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish out, in effect, by looking back on our Advent series and take you to one more story that I think is profound. You know, going into Christmas, I've done these a lot, you know, as old as I am, I've done a few Christmases, and the stories don't change in the Bible, and you always kind of wonder about the angle you're going to take. Well, I got super excited, and I hope you got a lot out of this whole idea that we did during Advent of discovering the reality of Christmas. And that is the concept that this story of Mary and Joseph and the baby and the manger and the angels and the shepherds did not begin once upon a time. It begins by the writer himself saying, he talked to eyewitnesses, he carefully investigated things, and he wanted us to be confident of these things. Now, guys, I'm going to remind you one more time just how important that is. It is deeply important, especially for us in our modern culture, because we live in a time when there's all kinds of information being thrown our way all the time through YouTube and websites and books and commentary that says it's really a story that's once upon a time. And it's not. And you need to be equipped, and especially your kids need to be equipped with the idea that this stuff has been carefully investigated. That's why we asked you to read the book, The Case for Christmas. I hope some of you did, because it really does represent kind of the bare minimum standard that you ought to have just in your mind and your heart to when you hear our culture kind of say, it's just a once upon a time story, it wasn't really real, that you're equipped with some answers on that. But that's what I expected to say during the entire series. But as we asked everybody to read Luke chapter 1 and Luke chapter 2, I found something that I didn't expect to see as we were kind of going through this. And the next story that I want to share with you represents that. And it's actually found, last week we talked about this character named Simeon, and that's what the writer Luke does. He kind of introduces these different people into the birth story of Jesus. And Mary and Joseph, being good Jewish people, they've gone to the temple. They're going to go through the different rituals that they've been called on to do for the baby Jesus. And this character named Simeon comes up and he says things that affirm who Jesus is. But while he's doing that, the very next passage says this in Luke chapter 2. It says, there was a prophetess, Anna, the daughter of Phanuel, of the tribe of Asher. She was advanced in years and had lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then as a widow to the age of 84. She never left the temple, serving night and day with fastings and prayers. And at that very moment, she came up and she began giving thanks to God and continued to speak of him to all of those who were looking for the redemption of Jerusalem. Now here's this person, Anna. She appears on the stage in the supporting role, and it's very, very quick, and then she disappears. But her presence is profound. Remember, she's in the temple, and she comes up while the parents are standing there with Simeon. And what it did for me again, what I didn't expect in reading these stories again, was it reminded me something very, very important that I hope you'll get going into the new year. And it's this. All these characters that Luke introduces throughout chapters 1 and 2 around the baby Jesus and his birth are marked by what I would call a simple but profound faithfulness. A simple but profound faithfulness. And Anna represents that. Did you notice in her story, the most intriguing thing is that she says she never left the temple, but she never left the temple from the time that she became a widow after being married just 7 years. For whatever reason, and can you imagine someone who's been married for 7 years and all of a sudden her life just completely takes a whole different direction that she never expected. And she goes, I think she went to the temple initially, I can't prove this, but I think she went there out of pain initially. I think it was the only place that she found any kind of meaning whatsoever. And she was just calling out to God kind of in desperation. And she wanted to do the opposite of what so many would probably do in a case like her. She's going along. She's only been married 7 years. She's a young woman. She's hurt by something that unexpected. A lot of people would get bitter, would get hard-hearted. But she went into the temple, and you can just see this young widow just pouring out. That's probably all she prayed about at first. But then she ends up just staying all these years into her elderly season of her life, 84 years old. She never leaves. And she fasts and prays. And Luke brags on that, in effect. And that's what he's done just in little ways throughout both chapters. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me that God, in the story of Jesus, I mean, this is the most important moment in history. The God of the universe is becoming a baby. And he's there, but how does he introduce himself? And to whom does he introduce himself? Who gets to see him? Who gets to be around him? You'll notice that each of the cast of characters had a simple but profound faithfulness. You know, I love all the big stuff. I love production. I love the lights. I love film. I love doing big things. And I think you're supposed to dream big dreams for God and expect him to do great things through your life. But here's what I learned in the course of this story. To never forget this. And I want you to remember it this way and think about this going into 2018. I would encourage us all to embrace the beauty of the basics. Embrace the beauty of the basics. Hannah's this character that comes on the stage and then leaves, but she had her eyes open to the God of the universe being there. She got to see it because her life through pain had entered into prayer. It said she was there daily serving with prayer and fasting. She didn't do anything grandiose. She didn't do anything remarkable by any world standards, but she stayed in front of God. And over time, that word serving is also translated in some translations, worship. Serving and worship go together, but you can serve through prayer. Simple thing like prayer and fasting. And you'll notice that that's the case. In these different characters, those are the ones that notice. Those are the ones that God wants to be around. And with all the things that we want to do and all the plans we have for 2018, I don't know what you've got on your list. Here at One Life, I'm excited about a number of things. But what I'm deciding in my life, and I'm a huge believer, because I think it's biblical that you ought to mark the new year to change some things, to do some things, to set some goals, to establish some things in your life. And I would challenge you and I to establish in our lives a true embracing of the beauty of the basics. And that is just saying, okay, God, I want to see great things happen. But I also need to be reminded that the greatest things of all happen in the simplest forms. It comes with prayer. It comes with fasting. It comes with just worshiping, just being in tune with who God is and getting to know him. And that doesn't take money. It doesn't take great goal setting. Sometimes it's just as simple as just deciding in my life, I'm not going to leave this place of worship. I'm not going to leave this place of prayer. And God will show you amazing things because you'll have the ability to see it. You see, prayer isn't about like, okay, she prayed so much that God did it. No, like she deserved it. Like, man, this woman never leaves the temple. She prays every day. I'm going to show her. It's not that. Each one of the characters exhibits this thing where in their faithfulness, they're simply in line with what God would have them do. And when you're in line with what God would have you do, that you can express every single day through a simple prayer life, getting into the Bible, serving others, worshiping, being a part of what God's doing in the world, it puts you kind of in the stream of what he would have you do. And he'll show you stuff. You ever wonder why it seems like some people just are kind of in tune with God more? It doesn't come through complexity. It comes through simple faithfulness and embracing the beauty of the basics, like Anna did. And she was able to see it. And it calls her a prophetess. That just simply means that a prophet was someone who spoke forth God's words. It wasn't, kind of crystal ball kind of stuff. It could be future oriented, but more than anything, it was knowing what God wants to say to people. And she saw that baby and she started just proclaiming, here's the truth, here's the truth. And that is her seal, a beautiful affirmation from the God of heaven. And you and I, that's accessible to every single one of us. without exception, going into a new year. We can all have that. So here's what we're going to do, guys. Here's what I'm asking you to do. There's service leaders at your campus. They're going to guide you in a time of prayer. And I want to invite you to do a few things as you're praying for you and your family. As I want to invite you to establish, I don't know what kind of goals you've set, but I want to invite you to start by saying, Lord, give me the strength and the ability and the time and the insight to going into 2018 that my days will be marked by embracing the beauty of the basics, of just prayer, of just fellowshipping with you, being in the Bible and just listening to your voice. Just start there. And then we want you to pray for a few other things. I want to invite you to pray, first of all, for yourself and your family. Of course, you're there, and pray for 2018. But secondly, I would challenge you, just think of one person, maybe one person that's been in pain, kind of like Anna was when she first entered. I know lots of people who are going through lots of things. I want to invite you, just in the course of the next few moments, think of one person you know in your life that's in pain, or just comes to your mind, and pray for them. Pray for our next generation. One of the things that we're marking going into the new year is we are going to give new dedication to seeing just whole new levels of excellence and passion directed towards our next generation, our students and our kids. Pray for them. Pray for our local community. Henderson and Evansville, in our tri-state area, the medical center opens just here in a few weeks, here in January. And I'm telling you guys, it's going to be a game changer for our community. We're not overnight, but it will over time. And pray. I believe that One Life and other churches here in this area are supposed to be ready for this. And all that we've been doing up until now, or the last 7 years, is getting us ready for this moment that our community is getting ready to go into. Pray for our community, that people will come to Jesus, that those who are far from God will trust and follow who Jesus is. And finally, pray for Global. We are really examining what God is calling us to do on a global level. We know He's opened up doors, but we're trying to discern through that and just pray that God will reawaken our passion for global things. But that takes us all the way back. But again, pray most of all that you will truly be able to embrace the beauty of the basics of worship, service, prayer, fasting, and true devotion to God on a daily level. I'm going to pass it back to our campuses.